So the job at Manchester United came right out of the blue. But I have to say, in my last year or two at Everton, I had been getting approached by many big clubs. I have to say nearly the majority of the big clubs in England had all at some time made contact with me. And it wasn't anything which I was really that interested in. Also, I have to say, a big Spanish team as well had contacted me. But I'd always said I would stay with Everton, I would see out my contract, or I would be continuing. But out the blue, Manchester United came for me. And if you look at Manchester United's history of selecting managers, it tend to be, well, really in my time it'd only been Sir Alex, but Sir Alex had been really successful at Aberdeen, but you wouldn't have said that Sir Alex was the biggest name out there. And I think Manchester United followed a pattern of picking what they thought was the right fit for their club. You know, person who they saw as the right way to go. There was they had real good values, Manchester United. I think when I was chosen, I think I fitted the values that Manchester United had. Young players, hard working, determination, but also being able to coach and take and work with players. And I think that's what Manchester United, and I believe that was the reason why Manchester United chose me. Their idea for managers, you'd have to say, has been to have a long-term project, because that is the way that club has tended to work. And when I joined, I went in there with a long contract, with the thoughts that this would be the next long stage of my career. And Manchester United were one of the last clubs to have those values. I think we'd seen regular changes at other clubs in the UK. It wasn't something which had been done at Manchester United. So I think in many ways their values had changed by that. But ultimately, if you're going to manage the top clubs, you have to win. And really, it's my philosophy. I didn't win often enough, and I totally understand that. I've always wanted to work abroad. I've always wanted the opportunity. And in truth, Germany would have been my first choice. I liked the way German football was organised, the sort of professionalism. When I went to the games, the stadiums were full, the training grounds were at the stadium. I liked a lot of the stuff what the Germans had done. But the Spain job came up and I was a little bit worried. I said, my goodness, this could be a different type of player. How am I going to deal with it? And I wasn't quite sure how it would be, but I've got to say, it was a brilliant experience. Real Sociedad was a great club with their great philosophy, which was you were only allowed 6 players from anywhere else except the academy. And they had to have come through the academy to be in the first team squad. So what it meant was something I found really difficult to start with. But as I grew on and had been there a year, I understood their values, what it stood for. They have a great academy. So if you're a talented footballer at Real Sociedad, you will always stay in the Real Sociedad academy with a great chance of playing in the first team, because you've had to come through the ranks. And we'll look at what we've got now in the UK, for example, with the teams, and we've got so many talented young English players about who are struggling to get games at their club. That isn't the situation in Real Sociedad. They play their players, they keep them there. If not, they put them to another club, but always keep hold of them. It might stop Real Sociedad ever becoming one of the top teams in Spain because of it. But I've got to say, I really value, and probably even more so, appreciate their what they stand for and how it worked. I learnt lots about football, I learnt lots about myself. I learnt about the cultural differences. The word culture covers so many aspects that, probably in this short interview we're having, I couldn't give it all out. But I think culturally you have to really immerse yourself in it. The language is something which I've got to say was probably my biggest disappointment, that I couldn't learn to speak Spanish. But it wasn't for the want of trying. It's an experience that we need to get more British managers into doing. At the moment, we can't get any British managers to get the jobs in the big leagues in Europe, which you would class as Spain, Germany, Italy, France. we've got very few British managers who are getting the opportunities to get jobs in those countries. We are very good at the moment of importing the best coaches and the best managers from other countries. Fortunately enough, I was one of the ones who got the opportunity to go and work in Spain. But now on the Scottish Pro licence, all the coaches have to do one of their sessions in a different language. And this is to show the coaches that we have to be more open, we have to learn languages, you have to be able to do Italian or Spanish or German, whatever you choose to do, you have to do one session in a foreign language. And that was since I came back from Spain. I thought that us British coaches have to be better in another language, and I don't know if the coaches will be thanking me for it now, but that's part of the pro licence in Scotland now. We've seen lots and lots of changes in the tactical and technical side of football at the moment. I do a lot of work for UEFA and have done and been on their observers for over the last few years about what are the new trends, what's developing in football. And, you know, for example, we only need to look at the difference in goalkeepers now. And I have to say, when a little bit of this talk came in 5 years ago about the goalkeepers using the ball a bit better, I mean, the answer was always, nah, just save it, just catch it, do the right things. Now, ultimately for me, that is the rule. Your goalkeeper has to stop the ball going in the net and has to help you out. But because of where the game is now, they have to be much better with their feet. So I think the coaching and training of goalkeepers will ultimately be one of the big changes which is happening and is happening in football because of the development. Now from young levels, the goalkeepers are getting taught in showing the use of their feet, probably joining in possession games with the team, joining in much more of the daily training than maybe what they have done in the past. And it mustn't take away their what they're there for, as I've said. But I think their use of the ball and being comfortable on the ball means that they have to be a footballer as well as a goalkeeper nowadays. Well, there's much more flexibility in all teams now. It's much more difficult now to necessarily say, are they playing with a back four, a back five, because teams are capable now of quite simply playing with a back four, but one fullback goes on, another one might stay. We're seeing sometimes where both fullbacks go on and a midfield player will drop in. We're seeing teams play with five at the back, or three at the back, and one of the central defenders taking the ball into the midfield. We're seeing lots of three midfield players, sometimes one holding, two advanced, sometimes two holding, one advanced. Sometimes it's in a sort of zigzag way, 1, 2, 3, in different ways. So I think now the flexibility in coaching and management has become much greater than ever been. I think what we're seeing less of is two strikers. I think we're seeing less and less in football of, say, twin strikers, where strikers would play together. And you go back to the great Manchester United teams who would have two strikers, Sheringham and Cole. I think we're developing strikers who play on their own. I don't think we're coaching and working partnerships necessarily in that position. I think we're also, for a long period, been looking at a different version of wingers, wide players. For many years at Everton, I said I played with false wingers, which I did do. We quite often in the early days, midway through, we had people like Mikel Arteta and Leon Osman would play off the sides, but really played as tucked in midfield players or in behind the striker when we had the ball. So we used to play with what we called false wingers, which at that time allowed us to have to see the likes of Leighton Baines or Seamus Coleman or Tony Hibbett attacking fullbacks. But I see now the wide players may play in a front three. So sometimes those front three are strikers, sometimes they're wingers. We have Manchester City who might play with two out-and-out wide players, but we see Liverpool who might play with old-fashioned inside forwards in Salah and Mane. So I think the systems are very flexible. I think how you work them's different for lots of teams. So I think there's an incredible change in football in many, many different ways, but for the good. But what we don't want is football played the same way by every team, because for me, if it's doing that, then we're going to be bored. So we have to encourage different styles, different managers. And if we're continually critical of managers who play maybe not the perfect style, then we will find that we have a game of chess, which eventually, for us all who are really keen to watch games, we don't. We want to see something different.